Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi, and in today's video we're looking at 4 new vintage style Star Wars figures from the next 17. Here we have Luke in his Farmboy outfit, we have Uncle Owen, we have Devilman, otherwise known as Malok, and on the right we have Wolfman, otherwise known as Lak Shrivrak. Now these are new figures, but they are made to look like vintage style Star Wars figures, and as I say, these come from the next 17. I've reviewed quite a lot of their figures over the years. They make some really interesting stuff. So here's a card, this is what their logo looks like, and this is the next 17. These figures come with this card which shows you all the ones that have been made so far. There are far more than 17, I have to say, and there are some really interesting ones, so do check out my previous videos on those. It also comes with this little collector's card here, which is quite nice, a little sort of trading card. There is one other creature here as well that you may have noticed, which is at the front, which is this small slug, and here's the slug that you see sort of above Jabba the Hutt in Jabba the Hutt's palace. It's a really interesting thing and a very sort of unique little character, so we'll look at him a bit later on. We also have this collector coin to go with the little mini Wampa that I have previously reviewed as well. So let's take a closer look at the figures and see how they're constructed, and I'll also point out something that's really quite interesting about them, the fact that they all use the same sort of body and legs. It's just the arms and head that change on them. So let's take a closer look at the figures. We will start with the 2 aliens, and these are 2 aliens that you see in the Mos Eisley Cantina. On the left we have Devilman, and on the right we have Wolfman. Now, as I say, these are all new figures. These are designed to look like vintage Star Wars figures, but they are all new and created by the next 17. And as I mentioned, the interesting thing about all 4 of these figures is that they use the same sort of body and legs and just swap out the heads and arms to make them look like different characters and give them a few different accessories. So let's start with Wolfman. So you can see this is a character that you sort of see very briefly in the Mos Eisley Canteen, and I think this is a pretty good sort of recreation of his face and body. It's a fairly sort of unique looking thing. It does look a little bit like a sort of Halloween mask, which I have a feeling was what they sort of based the original thing on. So you can see with the body, it's a fairly sort of a simplified thing with a bit of a tunic and then sort of brown trousers and black boots. And then we have these different arms that have wolf-like hands to them. This figure has 5 points of articulation, so we can rotate his head, you can rotate his arms up and down, and you can rotate his legs just like an original Star Wars figure. And he comes with this gun, which is a gun that the next 17 have used on a few different figures. It comes in various colours. So in this instance it's a black version of the gun, and that fits really snugly in his hand. They are really nice looking figures, and they have a sort of a nice weight to them. They do feel a lot like vintage Star Wars figures. You can see this one has been cast in a sort of purpley plastic, and I think the legs and the boots have been painted on, likewise his arms have been painted there, and then his head, I'm going to say, has been painted as well with a few little bits of detail there. So this is not made out of a brown plastic, it's a painted plastic, so I'm imagining it could be made out of this sort of purple plastic that's underneath. And then we have the Devilman, who uses the same bodies. The arms are slightly different, and in fact I think these arms are the same arms that we've got on Uncle Owen and Luke Skywalker, just in black with some orange sort of detailing on the hands. He comes with the same weapon as I showed you there, so this is a grey version of that blaster. And then the head is really pretty cool. It does look exactly like the characters you see him in the Cantina, this sort of evil looking devil man with horns, and he's painted in a really nice sort of orangey colour with really fine details. Actually, you can see just about there that he's got detail on his eyes. He's even got little irises painted on there, and nice teeth as well. This guy comes with a cape, and again this cape is one that we've seen before with the next 17, and I really like the style of this because it's a very unique design. We've got this sort of cape that folds over, so he's got like an under tunic and then this sort of cape that wraps around the back. It's a very clever design. I was quite impressed with this the first time I saw it, and it means that this figure, if you hold these 2 up together, they do look completely different. It's amazing what you can do just by adding a few accessories and changing the arms and the head. These 2 figures you really wouldn't know are the same sort of basic body, but they are. It's just had a different sort of paint application put on it, and then we've got different arms and a head. I think it's a very clever way of creating multiple figures, and it obviously keeps the cost down for producing these, because when you're producing figures in small numbers and sort of on a small scale, it can be quite expensive. So doing it this way, I can see you get a lot of bang for your buck out of the molds. It means that you get multiple uses from one single mold, and you can make a whole load of figures from it. Next up we have Uncle Owen and Farmboy Luke. So let's take a quick look at Uncle Owen. So again, as I say, this is the same body that I showed you on those 2 aliens, just painted differently. I think it has the same arms as the Devilman. In fact, let's bring in the Devilman so we can compare the 2. And yes, indeed, those are the same arms. They are just painted a different colour. But you can see what a difference it makes. These do look like two completely different figures. So here we have a sculpt of Uncle Owen. So the head of Uncle Owen I think looks really good. It's got a nice sort of detail on the hair with little strands being poked forwards. A little bit of detail on his eyes, but those eyes are very reminiscent to how the original Star Wars figures had their eyes painted. And he does look like an old man. I think it's a really sort of a nice take on him. The cape is basically, I'm going to say it's the Tusken Raider cape. It's that sort of shape to it, but it's been made in fabric. So this is the sort of toy knit fabric or looped fleece that I would use on Jedi era figures. So it's made a cape out of that, and then just you fold it down, much like the Tusken Raider cape. So it's sort of soft goods version of that. I think it sort of sits really nicely. He comes with a little communicator. Let me just pull that out so you can see there's a little black communicator there that fits in his hand, and that's it. It's a very simple figure. A little bit of detail on his belt there, and then he's got sort of brown trousers and brown boots. But I think this is a nice addition to the line. I'm hoping that he does Aunt Beru as well, so we then get Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, and that gives you all the characters that you need for recreating the Lars homestead. So yeah, I do think that's a really nice figure. Then we have the Farmboy Luke. So we've already had Farmboy Luke in the very original line that Kenner brought out, but this is a sort of new version. So this comes with his little hat on, and he's got sort of some goggles over the top of it. He also comes with his macro binoculars, so he can look out to see if there are any Tusken Raiders or sand people sort of on the horizon. Again, this is the same body. If I take off this little poncho that he comes with, you can see that is the same body, just in white with the sort of beige trousers. And then we can take a sort of closer look at his face like that. This is a pretty good face. I think it's more sort of Jedi era style. It looks a little bit older than the sort of the face that you get with the original figures, but it does a really pretty good job of sort of looking like Luke, and I think the hat fits really nicely on it. Then we have this little poncho which has been sort of sewn so it hangs over his shoulders. I've actually made some of my own ponchos for sort of the original Farmboy Luke. I did it in a completely different way, so it's interesting always to see how someone else sort of goes about designing those. But I think it sits really nicely, and it gives you a unique version of Luke Skywalker. Again, another one that you could sort of put with the Lars homestead, or if you're making sort of scenes where he's being attacked by Tusken Raiders, it would fit really nicely with that. So those work really well. I think it's a very clever, as I say, way to do it, using the same bodies and then just sort of swapping out the heads and the arms. You do end up with 4 very different looking figures, and actually if you check out my previous review of the Lars figures, some of those use these same body parts as well. So that you can see with careful use and sort of swapping of things and recolouring things, you can get a lot of use out of the same pieces. And then we have this little thing, which is a slug. And this is something that you do see in Jabba's palace. It's actually sort of hanging behind Jabba the Hutt from the ceiling, and you have his sort of tongue hanging down. It's a really odd little thing, a sort of blink and you miss it type creature. But it's really nice that someone has taken the time to actually make this. So anyone making dioramas of Jabba's palace will immediately want to have this and somehow stick it to the ceiling. In fact, I think I'm going to have to work out a way to add a little sticker or something to it so I can stick it behind my Jabba the Hutt on display here. A very unique piece indeed. Now also included was this coin, which is for the Wampa, and this is very reminiscent of the coins that you got with the Power of the Force figures at the end of the line. On this you can see it says Wampa at the top and Hoth indigenous creature at the bottom, and then in the middle you have a Wampa with a baby Wampa in front of it, and that is because there is a baby Wampa that the Next 17 has previously made, and I have previously reviewed, so do check that video out. On the back again it says Wampa, and it has a little bit of text which says Wampas are fierce ice-dwelling carnivorous predators known for their strength and aggressiveness. Now I have to say this is actually a really weighty thing. It feels like a proper coin. It's obviously made out of metal and it's got a lot of detail to it. We've got this sort of edging to it. It's about 3mm thick and it is incredibly shiny. If I just move this around you'll see sort of reflections, and you can probably see myself filming in that reflection there. It's a really nice thing. If you collect these coins it will be a great one to add to that little collection. So yeah, well worth getting. Very nice piece indeed. And there you go. Those are the new figures from the Next 17. If you want to get these figures for yourself, then follow the link in the description. I will add a link to all of his details there, and I do also check out his new YouTube channel, which again I will put a link to there. He shows you the sort of the process about making these new figures and all sorts of other things behind the scenes of how it all gets created. So it's well worth checking out, and also check out some of my previous reviews of the other Next 17 figures. They're a really nice selection of figures and ones that Kenner never made back in the day, so it's always nice to get new figures that were sort of never made but background characters that everybody wants to add to their diorama. So yeah, check out those reviews. If you've enjoyed this video then make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching Toy-Polloi. Subscribe for more great videos.